Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video, and today is going to be a juicy one. EA have just dropped the very first details about the next Battlefield game coming in 2025. Some of it you may have heard before because it was kind of leaked by Tom Henderson, but they're confirming a lot of this here. It's an article over on IGM and it's called Vince Zampella confirms next Battlefield will use modern setting, and we've also got the first concept art as well. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, this is going to be the place to be. I will be covering everything on the next Battlefield game going into the future. So if that is something you're interested in, make sure that you're subscribed. And as always, thank you guys so much for the support. So let's go over this together. This is the very first piece of concept art for the next Battlefield game. And the first takeaway of this for me is obviously that it looks like Levolution events of some description are going to be coming back. There is what looks like either wildfire or possibly even a volcanic eruption going off on this hillside here. I would say that this looks like it's somewhere in Europe, although they haven't confirmed where this specific setting or this map here is. And then another massive takeaway for me is that there are helicopters in the background, and maybe more importantly, given the past few Battlefield games, there are naval vessels on the water. Now, this is only concept art, guys. I know a lot of the stuff that we saw out of the team before Battlefield 2042 released wasn't exactly what Battlefield 2042 ended up being, so take this with a pinch of salt. This may not exactly be the game that we get, but I think it is a good sign that it appears to be more grounded in realism, a little bit more of a gritty, realistic aesthetic overall, and I really like the way that this looks. So let's move into the article because he has a lot of stuff to say. So the first section here is called Battlefield Goes Back to Basics, and they say here that all of it points to a back to basics approach for the next Battlefield. Indeed, head of Respawn and Group GM for EA Studios organization, Vince Zampella is quick to shout out Battlefield 3 and 4 in the course of sitting down with IGN to talk about these new reveals. On the decision to return to the modern era, Zampella says, I mean, if you look back at the peak or the pinnacle of Battlefield, it's that Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 era where everything was modern. And I think we have to get back to the core of what Battlefield is and do that amazingly well. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But I think for me, it's that peak of Battlefieldness that's in Battlefield 3 and 4 days, so I think it's nostalgic for players. For me, for the teams even, those are kind of the heyday, although I would say 1942 also. And I completely agree. I think you are all on the same page as me in saying that Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 were some of the best days. And yes, I also agree way back in the day with Battlefield 1942 and Battlefield 2 also. Bad Company was also great. But the fact that they realize this and they are agreeing with the community here is, I think, a really, really good step in the right direction, that they realize what we want from Battlefield. So they continue here saying, the return of the modern setting represents a course correction for the series after Battlefield 2042, which eventually found its footing, but was otherwise widely panned for features like specialists, characters that made it seem as if Battlefield was trying to be a hero shooter. Its ambitious 128 player maps also proved unpopular with fans who preferred a more focused experience. Battlefield 2042 eventually went back to supporting 64 players per map, and the next Battlefield plans to stick to that approach. So this is what Vince had to say on that. He said, yeah, the 128 player, did it make it more fun? Like, doing the number for the sake of the number doesn't make any sense. We're testing everything around what's the most fun. So, like you said, the maps, once they get to a certain scale, become different. It's a different play space, and I think you have to design around that. So we are designing something that is more akin to previous Battlefields, Zampella says. I'd rather have nice, dense, really nice, well-designed play spaces. Some of them are really good, and I can't wait for you to see some of them. So that sounds really, really great there. Of course, we'd already heard that it was rumored to be 64 players, but I'm just so happy that Vince seems to be agreeing with so much of what is resonating with the community right now. So specialists are also out this time around. He says, so I wasn't there for 2042. I don't know what the rationale was, but for me, it's like the team tried something new. You have to applaud that effort. Do we? Not everybody liked it, but you've got to try things. It didn't work. It didn't fit. Specialists will not be coming back. So classes are kind of at the core of Battlefield, and we're going back to that. So that's, again, great news there. Definitely what I expected and certainly what I hoped for. Now, he's careful to stress that Battlefield 2042 wasn't a failure of a game despite not doing as well as hoped. He notes that the development team really spent a lot of time learning how to adapt it and getting things back. Still, he says EA doesn't want a repeat of the experience that it had with 2042. We want it to be good out of the gate. Yes, I can completely understand that. I don't think that's what anybody wants, so definitely good stuff there. So they say it adds up to what one might call classic Battlefield, but bigger. Big enough that it merits the efforts of 4 separate studios in DICE, Motive, Ripple Effect, and Criterion, and Ridgeline Games was briefly part of its development before being shuttered after founder Marcus Leto's departure. EA CEO Andrew Wilson claims that it's one of the most ambitious projects in EA's history. And, well, it certainly does seem so, right? You've got 4 studios working on it at the moment. Although, you know, we also had something similar happen with Battlefield 2042. They brought in a lot of studios towards the end, but I think that was more of them realizing that they were kind of in the shit and they needed to pull out all the stops and do whatever they could to get the game up to snuff. Obviously, it wasn't there when it released, so hopefully it's not that again, and it's them, you know, being a little bit more proactive here. But they do say that Zampella remains kind of vague on what all of that actually entails. So he says, yeah, it's definitely getting bigger on Battlefield. It's going in and expanding what Battlefield is. We have to have the core Battlefield players know what they want. They've been with us forever. They've been amazing supporters. We need to earn their trust back and get them back on our side. And then it's expanding out and getting more players into the universe and seeing what we can do. So when you want a different experience, you don't have to leave Battlefield. You can experience things within the Battlefield universe. So we're expanding the offerings that we're giving. So that sounds a lot like there's going to be a Battlefield hub. For anybody who's tried the newest Call of Duty, you'll know that there's like a Call of Duty hub now, and you log in there and then you have to choose your game from within there. Maybe it's going to be something similar for Battlefield. You're going to have a core experience, there's going to be a campaign in there, and I know there are rumors that a Battle Royale is being made by Ripple Effect Studios. Whatever they are working on, it's a standalone Battlefield game separate from what DICE Stockholm are working on, so that could well be the case. Now, they also decided to ask Vince a rather interesting question here, whether he thinks Battlefield can ever outsell Call of Duty, or essentially be a bigger game than Call of Duty. And this is his response here. He says, if you look at the best Battlefields, they have outsold some Call of Duties and the other way around, back and forth. So I think absolutely it can. I mean, is that what we're going for though? I mean, not directly, but always. We're not looking to take down Call of Duty, we're making something that's different, and we're making something that's us. But yeah, it definitely has the possibility. And I think that's always where Battlefield has been for me. It's been a competitor to Call of Duty, yes, but not necessarily to make Call of Duty obsolete. I think both of these games can and will continue to coexist into the future, and I know a lot of players, a lot of you, who play both of them and enjoy both of them, right? Call of Duty is an arena shooter at its core, and yes, now it's got the Battle Royale stuff and the DMZ and all of that around it, and Battlefield I think is going to evolve in much the same manner, but I've always been more of a Battlefield player and less of a COD player, but some people prefer COD the other way around, and I think that's absolutely fine. Now, on the subject of pushing into the transmedia space where franchises like The Last of Us and Fallout have thrived, so obviously for those of you who aren't aware, The Last of Us and Fallout have had TV shows on, was it Netflix, Amazon Prime, or one of these streaming services anyway. This is what Vince had to say about that. So he says there are definitely opportunities there. We've had some discussions, but it's not our core business. To me, that stuff, when it works, it's super cool. Like, Arcane was fucking great, which is based on League of Legends, but there's other ones that haven't worked as well, and I won't name those, but you know what they are. It's a marketing opportunity of getting your franchise out there, and it's not core to what we're doing right now. So we are game first, that has to work, and if the right opportunity comes, absolutely we'll look into it. And we do take meetings all the time, sure, but it's not the core business, so it's that balance. I would love to see it. Right now, we're not looking at anything like that for Battlefield. I definitely think that is the right move. You don't want to be biting off too much more than you can chew. Right now, EA and all of the studios working on the next Battlefield game have to have their focus on just making an absolute banger of a Battlefield game to bring the player base back again. Now, this next bit is very interesting. This is all about the release date. So they say that it's unclear when the next Battlefield will release, but there are signs that EA is ramping up for 2025, having entered full production earlier this year. According to Zampella, EA is playtesting the game every week and plans to launch a community program next year, although it's unclear if it's going to be a closed beta or something else. So he says, we have a program that we're going to announce next year around getting more community in, because that's kind of the core of what we have to do. Get the community back on our side, get that trust back, he says. So I think we're in a really good place. Is it challenging? Of course, but it wouldn't be fun if it wasn't. So that's a really good move there. This doesn't sound to me like a regular beta or alpha test. This sounds a lot more like closed testing, possibly under NDA, where they're going to get in members of the community. Hopefully some of you all will get invited to that as well, and we can all test the game and give feedback. And I really think that is something that Battlefield 2042 was sorely lacking. There was nobody able to give feedback, and the few people who were, they simply weren't listened to. So I think the earlier they start playtesting the game with the community next year, the better finished product we're going to end up with. And then the last little piece here is actually about the platforms that he's going to launch on. So he was sort of asked whether he's planning to launch on PS5. Obviously, like, PS5 Pro has just been announced, so that's definitely going to be a thing when the next Battlefield game rolls around, and what sort of platforms are they thinking about? And then, of course, there's also the Switch 2. So he says, I mean, since the Switch 2 isn't announced and it doesn't exist, I can't really comment on that, but I would say absolutely Nintendo, along with Microsoft and Sony, are great partners for us. They are important to us on our business at EA, at Respawn, and we'd love to see it. We don't have anything to announce, but is there a world? Sure, we love them as partners, and they've been great to us. I love the Switch, he says. So Battlefield possibly coming to the Switch 2, it sort of sounds like maybe they have some sort of a dev kit for the Switch 2 that they may be testing the game on. Obviously, the Switch 2 hasn't been announced yet, but we're all sort of expecting an announcement really anytime soon, because the Switch is getting pretty darn old. I'm not sure which year it released, but it's 2016, 17, something like that. So it's like 7 or 8 years old at this point. I think Switch 2 has to be coming soon, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they are maybe planning to release on that platform. Not sure I'd want to play Battlefield on a Switch personally, but I'm going to be here on PC as usual. Absolutely massive info drop there. I know a lot of it was them just sort of confirming maybe things that you guys have already heard on the rumor mill, but nevertheless, I think that's a good thing. And honestly, everything that Vince had to say there, I completely agree with. I'm glad that he seems to be in tune with the community, and he placed a lot of emphasis in this article, in this interview, really dumbing down on what Battlefield need to do to win back the audience. To win back the community, they need to play ball with us and gain back our trust. He said that like 3 or 4 times, that he needs to gain the community's trust back again, and I think that is absolutely paramount to the next Battlefield success. But guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'm sure you've all got a lot of thoughts and opinions of your own. I would love to read them, so leave them down there. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more Battlefield, because I will be covering, as I already said, everything to do with this game going into next year. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.